but you got all these campaign advertisements. People are, very active in the campaign. But what if your elections are stolen? What if that's all for naught? That's a real crisis for the Republic as well. It all becomes a joke. So what do we do to preserve and protect clean elections? We make sure there's voter ID. We make sure this is a needed reform. We have citizenship verification. You know why? Because an alien, legal and otherwise, there are tens of millions of them here in the United States. A good percentage of them are going to register to vote. And of those, some will vote. And once you're registered to vote, voter ID isn't necessarily going to stop you from voting, even if you're illegally registered to vote. That's why you need citizenship verification to register to vote or to vote. And voter ID is also, as I say, it's not necessarily sufficient, but it's certainly necessary for clean elections. Many key states don't have voter ID. California doesn't have voter ID. Illinois doesn't have voter ID. Pennsylvania doesn't have voter ID. New York doesn't have voter ID. New Jersey doesn't have voter ID. North Carolina doesn't have voter ID. There's a law for voter ID in North Carolina, but the left went and assaulted the law, and activist judges have set it aside despite the voters' wishes. Many big states have voter ID, but they're not as strong a law as you might think. Out of the 50 states in the Union, I think 10 or 11 have really strong voter ID laws. All vociferously opposed by the left. And then there's the issue of clean elections in terms of having clean election rolls. Judicial Watch did a study last year, 2.5 million extra names on the voter rolls nationwide. 2.5 million. Believe it or not, that's good news. Because the prior study we had done for the last election cycle, I think it was 2016, it's 3.5 million. And what Judicial Watch does is we go to court to enforce the federal law that requires states to take reasonable steps to clean up the rolls. Many of these states have counties where they have more people on the rolls than are eligible to vote. In Los Angeles County, for instance, we just settled one of those lawsuits, and Los Angeles County, not a conservative county, they agreed to remove up to 1.6 million inactive names from their rolls. Inactive names are people who are either moved away, haven't voted in years, or dead. They shouldn't be on the rolls. It's a pool for potential voting fraud. The left would have you believe, don't worry about voter fraud. Don't worry about it. Well, you know what? What do you think about voter fraud? How much voter fraud is too much voter fraud for you? 1 million votes? 100,000 votes? 10,000 votes? How about one vote? If it's your vote being lost, that's a major issue. And in this era of close elections, every vote counts. And stolen votes are a civil rights problem. So if the civil rights advocates, so-called civil rights advocates, are really concerned, they should be trying to eliminate voter fraud, because that's vote stealing. That's vote stealing. Now, we can't eliminate all voter fraud, but we can place steps, put up guardrails, cleaner election rolls, voter ID, citizenship verification, other basic rules and regulations to make sure that when people show up to vote, they are who they say they are and they're eligible to vote. And you know what the irony is? When you have better rules and cleaner elections, the studies show more people come out to vote. Why is that? Because they understand their vote will count. And they understand their vote won't be stolen, because people know how the game is played. If they see there's no voter ID, they see all sorts of other improprieties around elections. And why do you think the left hates all of this? We go to clean up the rolls, they go crazy. By the way, we just sent warning letters to 5 other states, California again, North Carolina, Virginia, Colorado, North Carolina, Virginia, Colorado, California. What's the other state? Well, anyway, 4 or 5 states. 19 counties across 5 states. So we're prepared to sue. It's imminent that we'll be suing more states to get them to clean up their rolls. And we don't have terribly high standards. You got more people on the rolls than are eligible to vote. That's a good sign that you're not taking reasonable steps to clean up the rolls. But why does the left want to do this? Why do they hate voter ID? Why do they hate citizenship verification? Why do they promote the craziness of ballot harvesting, like in California, where anyone and everyone can go around collecting votes from third parties and bring them to the election polls? Why do they want to do that? Because in my view, they want to be able to steal elections when necessary. And of course, most Americans agree with me on this. Most sensible Americans want voter ID, want clean elections. The left hates it because they want to be able to steal elections. Look at this Electoral College attack, which would make voter fraud even worse of a problem, because if you got more votes in Illinois, even if it beyond what you needed to win the Electoral College, all those votes go to the so-called popular vote. And so places where voter fraud is a problem have an outsized impact on the election beyond, and the Electoral College is designed to prevent that from happening. So of course they're assaulting it.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch all the latest news from Judicial Watch.